Turbo Granny. From the beginning, we hear about a granny living in an abandoned tunnel who loves to run. If you can't beat her in a race, then you get taken over or die by her hand. But despite being extremely evil to Akarun and Momo, she was also the guardian spirit for any young girl who was wronged there. Dozens of them were connected to her after criminals assaulted and killed them there. So she's not all bad, but she's definitely not someone we can say is good either. Not only does she threaten to kill Momo's grandmother and anyone else so that she can get her powers back, but she also helps them against other spirits if it affects her directly. Turbo Granny's power includes 100 km/h speed even in turns, teleportation through technology, size shifting at will, cursing others, and fusion with other spirits like the giant crab. Eventually, she's forced to choose between her power and existence and ends up possessing a beckoning cat in Momo's house to avoid being exorcised. That way, she's not as dangerous, but she's also easier to hide from regular people and bring along. She also gains more luck from being inside the Maneki Neko doll. And in case you're wondering why a sprinting granny can also be found in other anime like Mob Psycho 100, it's because it's part of a widely known Japanese folk, and there's a possibility that this legend comes from the Japanese myth of leaving elderly family members in remote locations due to financial strain. But there's the other version that involves a truck driver who did a hit and run and was haunted by an elderly woman who caught up to him. That might explain why she was so willing to protect the young girls. Speaking of which, Earthbound crab spirit. This massive crab spirit is an amalgamation of young girls who were brutalized and killed, having their bodies discarded in the tunnel. But as years passed and more victims were added to the body, the stronger it got. It leaves the tunnel because of its attachment to Turbo Granny and tries to save her from Momo and Akarun's abduction. It also fuses with the granny to make sure that it can defeat the two kids. On its own, the spirit basically does everything a crab can do if it was the size of a building. After being boiled in a sauna, it can still survive. It can also fuse with Turbo Granny thanks to her power. The giant crab with human characteristics likely has to do with the Hekigani, which is a Japanese crab with a pattern that makes it look humanoid. And since it kind of looks like a samurai, it's nicknamed the samurai crab as well. Acrobatic Silky. Formerly a human who lost her daughter due to a debt with unsavory people, she searched for her child until she forgot how she looked and who she was after dying. Then Ira reminded Silky she lost her daughter, and she thought she had to protect her after Ira lost her own mother. For years, she was inactive, peacefully watching over Ira until she could see her again. And then she became a vengeful spirit when Ira turned on her, going against her initial purpose. This is when we found out just how strong and agile Silky could be. She could also use her hair to trap and attack enemies while continuously dodging any enemies despite her giant size. Acrobatic Silky regrets her actions when she takes Ira's life and offers her core as a means to revive her, inadvertently giving her powers to Ira in the process. After Silky's sacrifice, she reunites with her daughter's spirit in the afterlife. This yokai is inspired by Acrobatic Sara, a mysterious woman in a dress with long silky hair. Like Acro Silky, Sara dances around doing acrobatics on roofs, and anyone who sees her gets cursed. Anatomical model Taro and Hana. Taro and Hana are anatomical models who somehow became sentient, but continued to pretend to be inanimate. Because they're not human, they can recover from being destroyed or smashed by putting the pieces together. Hana's missing her limbs for whatever reason, which is why she was thrown in a dump, but still alive. And Taro is extremely fast and durable, even after being hit by a car, but can still feel pain. Taro's also able to contain the evil eye inside of his body when Gigi's unable to control it. And he's also the reason they find out that warm liquids draw Gigi back out. Thanks to Momo and Akarun, the couple end up together, and Taro resumes his job as the school's model during the day. At night, he rushes to see Hana to spend time with her. As for the basis of this yokai, well, most schools believe models come alive at night. Evil Eye. Formerly a human boy, Evil Eye was sacrificed to the Tsuchinoko of his town. Despite this, his spirit tried to protect others from being given as offerings, but as time passed, he lost all his positivity and hope of ever saving anyone. He turned cold and angry, wanting revenge for what was done to him and other innocents, and not being able to leave the place where it happened only made it worse. At first, Gigi's able to see him and even feel sorry when he finds out about his past. Afterwards, his charred body is freed from the underground, but it doesn't stop his urge to murder everyone. Eventually, he submits to the fact that he can't just kill and fight whenever he wants, and using warm water/liquids keeps him at bay until he agrees to be in more control of his aggression, with cold liquids bringing him out unintentionally. As a vengeful yokai, the Evil Eye can share his memories or possess humans, as well as block psychic waves from the giant death worm. And looking in its eyes can cause people to want to die too. Inside a host, he becomes extremely strong and fast, durable, and a capable fighter. He can create objects from grudges, like buildings and even barriers. In the case of the cursed house he makes, it's used for protection and also capturing victims. There's also the grudge balls, basically a soccer ball that he can use to attack from any direction. The Evil Eye comes from many cultures, a belief that a gaze with malicious intent can cause harm or curses. But in Volume 6, they say this yokai is a combination of Yamanoke and Kune-kune instead. Tulpas. While Momo and her grandma are still dealing with Gigi's possession, another threat appears. The Tulpas, who inhabit the music room portraits. They're empowered by all the students who went into that room, and were afraid to not play the music properly or to improve. It's made worse by who's depicted in the portraits: Beethoven, Mozart, Schubert, Bach, Bernstein, and De Vrak. Only at very late hours do they become active, and if someone plays badly near them, they end up killed. All of the portraits have their own personalities and abilities, but as a group, they levitate and attack with musical notes. They can also create rooms or outdoor settings to make their attacks more effective or to trap their opponents. This yokai comes from the Japanese legend known as the Beethoven portrait mystery, passed down by students. Not only do they think the portraits will come alive, but their eyes will glow or change expressions, and they can even play instruments. But initially, tulpas were simply imaginary companions stemming from Tibetan Buddhism and the human mind. Slit-mouthed woman. This yokai, aka Reiko Kashima, was also once human. She fell in love and then lost her life in a terrible plane incident. Some even believe it happened during the time of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombing. Besides that, she doesn't reveal too much of her past. As a vain character, Reiko attacked Momo and Vamola for not complimenting her appearance in a dilapidated area where she resided. It didn't help that Momo shouted "pomade" to get rid of her, instead of being nice. Considering how important beauty is to her, it's no surprise her main weapon is a mirror. This includes projecting images of herself to other reflective surfaces or to taunt them inside and kill them. Reiko can also control and possess anyone who sees their reflection and use the mirror to understand her opponent's feelings, which can then help her to copy someone's voice and personality to trick others. And since it's a mirror, she can also spy on enemies. Thankfully, Reiko leaves Momo alone when she notices her bond with Akarun and wants to find her own love. Inspired by a modern Japanese legend called the Kuchisake Onna, but also the Teke Teke, a schoolgirl who was split in half by a train, legless. Hachisaku-sama is an online legend that could relate to her as well, since she stalks boys and men, but also involves surviving with curtains and doors closed and not letting her in, or even someone like Bloody Mary. Aoyan Yobo could also be mixed in, since it lives in abandoned and broken down areas, seeking to appeal to anyone who happens to show up. Onbusuman. Originally known as Mai Kawabanga, she took the form of an Onbusuman after passing away in a tragic accident. Rather than moving on, she clung to her childhood friend Rin, blaming her for causing her death. The first form Mai took was a large, monstrous, hairy turtle with a weird humanoid head. Later on, she became a guardian spirit with a friendly, cartoonish look that mixed both the young girl and the turtle creature together in a more approachable way. And her focus became on helping Rin reach her own dreams. Eventually, she merges with Rin to help boost her power and confidence too. She makes her look like an idol in a revealing costume, turning into a microphone for Rin as well. Prior to being healed of her trauma, Mai dragged Rin down, making her feel heavy with weight until she would eventually die from it. This also points to gravity manipulation. Outside attacks passed through Mai, and she stayed hidden until she knew it was safe to attack. She can attract other spirits to grow bigger as well. Possibly inspired by either Konaki Jiji or the Onbusuman, as they both relate to tricking people into picking them up and then growing enormous and heavy enough to kill the victim. Not to mention the whole turtle theme, and Mai's last name could be referenced to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles since their catchphrase is Cowabunga. Fairy Tale card. He was sealed within a cursed trunk called a Danmara. No one knows why he was sealed in the trunk, but it seemed valid considering his power. The card had to lure outside people to his trunk for it to break free, so anyone who touched the trunk could be sucked into the world within, with one being a young boy who was rejected as an old man when he turned out to be useless. This demonic spirit uses buds for offense, but also to regenerate any cards that are destroyed. He can control others' bodies as a whole or single body parts should the enemy make eye contact. He also feeds off of hatred and anger and encourages it. Inside the trunk, the Fairy Tale card created an area completely under its control. After being defeated, Count Saint Germain tricks the Fairy Tale card and steals its power as his own. Based on a Japanese internet legend called Devil's Fairy Tale cards, incorporating many children's tales, but there's also a slight nod to the three wise monkeys, who see, speak, and hear no evil. Umbrella Boy. Futazuma was originally the younger brother of Onbusuman and had a treasured umbrella and rain boots before becoming a yokai. These were the only things his mother bought for him. If not for how much Futa loved his umbrella, he wouldn't have drowned in a nearby river chasing it. Afterwards, he became a peaceful umbrella yokai, until meeting his brother again when Unji tried to save his guardian from drowning in that same river. Still a small child, Futa now has multiple umbrellas at his disposal. After forcibly merging with Unji, who was already a rebellious delinquent, Futa becomes faster, stronger, and good at hand-to-hand combat, but can't control his umbrella when warm air fills the area. This behavior change was due to the Fairy Tale card's control. Once Unji is at peace with the past and content with his new life, Futa says goodbye and leaves with their parents. There's no doubt this stems from the Kasa Obake, which are usually one-legged, one-eyed umbrellas that have come to life. There's sometimes also old, forgotten umbrellas who became sentient. That's pretty much it for this one, guys. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more Dandadan content.